The singing in Splatoon is iconic. It sounds just like how you'd imagine a squid would sound if it could sing. But how does this squid-style singing actually work? Well, in this video, I'll take you through the journey that Nintendo took to get their squids to sing. From hiring the human singers behind the characters, to writing lyrics in a fictional squid language, to processing the voice until it sounded like, well, a squid. Here's how Splatoon's squid singing was created. In Splatoon 1, there are two idols, Callie and Marie, who make up the Squid Sisters duo. And the first step in the process of getting these idols to sing was writing the songs. And for that, we need to turn to Shiho Fujii, a composer at Nintendo who was in charge of composing every single Squid Sisters song. Now, by the time Fujii joined the Splatoon team, the basic concept of the Squid Sisters had already been decided on. Fujii's job was to write their music. So she started out with the concept of traditional Japanese folk music, but her early attempts sounded too reminiscent of Japan. She explained it was difficult to feel the unique atmosphere of the squid world. So she made some adjustments, changing some of the most obvious aspects of Japanese folk songs into more subtle references. And the biggest change, adding in what she described as undulating tones. In other words, notes that varied in pitch, up and down, to create an almost underwater sound. She explained, by introducing undulating tones, I made the music reminiscent of the imaginary squid world. So then it came time to write the lyrics. And since these songs existed within the fictional world of Splatoon, no words or phrases from real-world languages would appear in these lyrics. Instead, Shiho Fujii wrote down a bunch of, well, nonsense, completely made-up sounds and fake words. There is no meaning to the lyrics of Splatoon. Shiho Fujii and the rest of the game's composers just picked sounds that sounded good. As Fujii explained, I chose words that are somehow easy to sing or stick in your head. She elaborated, I made up the lyrics, consulting those around me and actually singing them myself to check how they sounded and how easy they were to sing. But there's one last factor that affected these lyrics, and that is which real-world languages they sounded like. Because if I were to make up a bunch of nonsense lyrics right now, I don't know, they would sound completely different to what someone at Nintendo would come up with, because I'm an English speaker and they're Japanese speakers. Since the languages sound completely different, the kind of made-up words you come up with are also different. And the Splatoon composers used this to their advantage. For the Squid Sisters, whose music is based on traditional Japanese folk tunes, the made-up lyrics were meant to sound more Japanese, whereas the battle music, which was inspired by rock and punk genres, was given more Western-sounding lyrics. Again, the lyrics are nonsense, but they are based on how languages like English, Spanish, and German sound. And so, with the words finished, it was time for the next stage of the process, figuring out how these characters, Callie and Marie, should actually sound. The game's sound team ruled out completely synthesized voices, something like Vocaloid, instead deciding to take actual human-recorded vocals and process them to sound, well, not human. Before any actual singers recorded Callie and Marie's songs though, composer Shiho Fujii recorded a rough demo herself. Sadly, this demo hasn't been made available, but it's interesting to think about how a song like Callie Marie Incantation would have sounded if it was sung by someone completely different. So, with the direction decided on, taking human vocals and squidifying them, the process of hiring a pair of singers to provide Callie and Marie's voices began. And so, Nintendo held auditions in Japan to find these singers. The people auditioning were told almost nothing about what they were auditioning for. They knew it was a video game, but they didn't know that Nintendo was involved at all. They also didn't know that they were going to be singing complete nonsense. When auditioners arrived at the studio, they were handed a piece of paper with some squid language lyrics written on it, along with a melody to sing. And then they were told to sing it, to sing these made-up words. Among the various singers present at the auditions were two singers called Katie Pop and Mari Kikuma. And according to Kikuma, for the audition, I was given a piece of paper with a mysterious spell on it. I was surprised and read it for a while, but I couldn't understand it. In the end, I forgot that it was an audition and sang happily. Katie Pop said something similar. I had never seen the language before and the staff told me to speak and sing as they said, I know you don't understand it, but give it a try. And out of everyone who auditioned, Splatoon's staff picked Katie Pop and Mari Kikuma to voice the Squid Sisters. Katie Pop was to voice Callie, the more energetic of the pair, while Mari Kikuma would voice Marie, who was a little more refined. But this pair of singers never actually met before the first recording session for the game. And if that wasn't enough of a surprise, the pair of singers were told that for their very first session, they wouldn't be singing, but instead voice acting. As Katie Pop explained, when it came time to record, I was given a piece of paper with words I didn't understand again. On the first day, we didn't sing, but recorded voices. Now, neither Katie Pop nor Mari Kikuma were voice actors, they were singers, which is a completely different skill set. They've said multiple times in interviews that this voice acting was really difficult, potentially harder than the actual singing they did later on. I felt like I was using parts of my brain I had never used before, and I was sweating a lot, said Mari Kikuma. But after a long day of recording, the Squid Sisters' speech was all done, and the exhausted singers/voice actors could go home. It was about a week later when the pair came back to the studio to record the first of the game's songs. A few days earlier, they'd been given sheet music along with the lyrics they'd be singing. Again, these lyrics were total nonsense, described by Mari Kikuma as a mysterious spell. So the two singers had no choice but to memorize every last made-up word they'd be singing. But thanks to all the preparation work they put in, the actual song recording session went by without too much difficulty. In fact, Katie Pop said that when it came to her first song for Callie, her very first take was accepted and used in the game. Meanwhile, Marie's songs included an extra level of complexity. And that's because Marie was supposed to sing in an Enka style. Now, Enka music is a genre of Japanese music, and it's this sort of fusion of traditional Japanese folk singing with a more Western-style pop structure. Anyway, Marie was supposed to sing in this very distinctive Enka style, but Mari Kikuma had no experience at all with Enka music. So, before the songs were recorded, she began listening to Enka music all the time and trying to copy the singing she heard. She'd even sing while washing the dishes. And so, by the time the songs were recorded, Mari Kikuma had totally nailed this Enka singing style. She was so good at it that she really impressed her co-star, Katie Pop, who said it sounded like she'd been singing Enka music for her whole life. Things moved really quickly during this recording session. The two singers recorded 4 to 5 songs back to back, all in one day. They said later that they thought their difficult experience recording the characters' speaking voices had prepared them for this singing marathon. And so now the final stage was to apply the Squid Effect to the recorded voices. Now, Nintendo haven't talked publicly about exactly how they squidify their voices, but the process took a little while to perfect. Listen to the game's main theme, Splatack, during the game's reveal in June 2014. And then listen to the final version, released a year later. The singing doesn't quite sound the same, does it? You see, even right up till the game's release, Nintendo was tweaking how their squid voices sounded. So, at its core, the effect is achieved using something called a low-pass filter. A low-pass filter cuts out all of the high frequencies from a sound, turning my normal speaking voice, which sounds like this, into something which sounds much more muffled. Hear the difference? Now, obviously this muffled voice doesn't actually sound like a squid yet, and that's because there's one last step. We have to quickly change which frequencies the filter is filtering out, back and forth and back and forth. At a slow speed, it sounds like this, but increase the speed and suddenly it sounds like a squid from Splatoon. Now, there's a lot of other effects you can put on the sound to make it sound even more like the squids from Splatoon. But at its core, it's this low-pass filter which goes back and forth and back and forth, and that creates the squid-like sound heard throughout Splatoon. And so, here is the final result. And when Splatoon was released in 2015, the idols Callie and Marie were massively popular. So popular that Nintendo held live concerts where people could watch the virtual singers perform on stage. And when the voices behind Callie and Marie first went to see one of these events, they started crying. It was so moving seeing the characters they brought to life on stage in front of a packed audience. Now, there are other singers in the world of Splatoon. A lot of the in-game music features vocals from other fictional bands, like Squid Squad, for instance. The male vocals of Squid Squad were provided by this man, Hiroaki Takeuchi. And in Splatoon 2, a lot of the new band's vocals were provided by another singer, Sachiko Watabe. But when Nintendo began work on their sequel to Splatoon, it was decided that they'd introduce a new pair of singing idols, a duo named Pearl and Marina, making up the band Off the Hook. And that meant holding more auditions to hire 2 new singers. Again, nobody at the auditions was told that they were auditioning for Splatoon. They were just given a song to sing and shown an illustration of the 2 characters. However, one person at the audition, called Rina Ito, knew about Splatoon, and when she saw the picture, she had a feeling that this audition might just be for the game's sequel. And Ito passed the audition, getting the role of Pearl, the energetic member of Off the Hook. As for Marina, the more mature of the 2 characters, a singer called Alice Peralta got the part. And if you listen to one of Off the Hook's songs, you can hear how these new singers sounded. Interestingly, when the singers behind Pearl and Marina went to one of the Splatoon live concerts, they of course felt a lot of emotions, but Marina's voice, Alice Peralta, said she actually felt jealous of Marina up on stage. She was the one who'd done the singing, but Marina was the one getting all the applause. What a strange feeling that must have been for the 2 singers. So now, in 2022, Splatoon 3 is about to be released, and this time, 3 new idols have been introduced: Shiver, Fry, and Big Man, who make up the band Deep Cut. As of making this video, the identities of the singers behind these characters haven't been revealed yet, but listening to their music, it seems like they've been doing a pretty stellar job. So, next time you listen to your favourite Splatoon song, take a closer listen to those squid-like vocals. Because now you know a little more about how they were created and who is really singing the songs. Hey, thanks for watching. I am so excited for Splatoon 3. I picked Team Rock in the world premiere Splatfest, so not to brag, but my team did win. I don't think it was because of me and my terrible Splatoon skills though. Anyway, subscribe if you're not already, because I tell behind the scenes stories about Nintendo games every week, and I'll see you next week. Bye!